This is not good. Democrats in the Senate are now criticizing the House's GOP newly proposed bill. With less than 2 weeks to reach an agreement, many are being urged to prepare. Joe Biden is also calling for the expansion of new tax credits. And far-right Republicans took action this week, cutting a government funding deal with center-right lawmakers as Congress moves toward a potential shutdown. Senate Democrats criticized the stopgap spending bill that was rolled out, even further increasing the chances of a government shutdown. Chuck Schumer even said that last night's proposal in the House can be boiled down to 2 words. It's reckless. Now, both chambers are having trouble deciding how to proceed. The future of the House remains very much in the air, as the conference details, with multiple absences. Now, in the Senate, there is a hamstring at the moment. Senate Appropriations Committee Chairwoman Patty Murray moved to suspend the Senate's rules today to advance a trio of bills. This comes after Ron Johnson objected to the bill last week. He's calling for the bills to be voted on one by one, a process that is more time-consuming than a bipartisan minibus. In order to move on to Murray's plan, 2/3 of the senators will need to support the motion, but Senate Republicans were non-committal to how they would proceed despite the overwhelming support. John Thune, the number 2 Republican, told reporters that Republicans in the upper chamber are in wait-and-see mode and want to see what the House produces. Joe Biden has made no secret of his support in the expanded child tax credit, just to bolster the finances of U.S. households and keep many from slipping into poverty. Now that a new U.S. Census Bureau study has revealed an increase in the poverty rate last year, Biden has once again brought the issue to the forefront. The Census Bureau study released this week found that the supplemental poverty measure also accounts for geographic variations in housing costs, as well as federal taxes, state taxes, work expenses, and medical expenses. And according to the Census Bureau's analysis, the increase in supplemental poverty measure last year was the result of key changes in federal tax policy, including the expiration of the expanded child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. Now, the nonprofit Center on Budget and Policy Priorities had a similar take, noting that the historic rise in child poverty was driven by the expiration of relief programs.
Proposed it to the conference last night. We'll walk through and see where it's at.
Do you think you could pass that?
Don't know, but this was something devised by bottom up. Let's see where people get to.
And this will get you, if you pass it, the Senate is most likely going to reject it. Where does this leave you for a full year of funding? That's the question.
It's a good thing I love a challenge. Because every day is going to be a challenge. We got a long week. We're not September 30th yet. But the one thing I'll tell everybody, I've never seen anybody win a shutdown. You only put the power in the hands of the administration. If you want to secure the border, pass Homeland. If you want to make America strong and secure, you pass the DOD appropriations bill. If you're not willing to pass appropriation bills, and you're not willing to pass a continuing resolution to allow you to pass the rest of appropriation bills, and you don't want an omnibus, I don't quite know what you want. So we just have to get together, figure it out, and move forward.
How do you plan to convince those hard no's?
Look, every week I've gone through this, so we'll just work together, see where we get.
A number of members of your conference have already said, tweeting last night, that they're not a fan of this plan and that they would definitely vote no on it.
Well, that's difficult. The Freedom Caucus and the Main Street are the one that came up with the plan. So have they read it yet? The one thing I always know with members, sometimes they haven't read all the way through it. Let's let them understand what it is and see where they are.
Some of the ones who said no were also the ones who held up the DOD appropriations. So do you think you'll be able to get that one through?
Well, we're going to run DOD regardless. There's not one member who told me anything in the DOD bill they oppose. I don't know if they're just opposed to moving individual bills or what, but that's not a good, strong position to be in. So
are you going to meet with Zelensky this week?
I think I am. I haven't seen the schedule yet, but if he's...
More relief is on the way. A one-time direct deposit worth as much as $250 are set to go out to millions of Americans, and thanks to a bill that was approved today. This legislation will also help cut poverty rates. The Biden administration has proposed a brand new rule that helps students with crippling debt. And more relief has been approved on a state level. Democrats reached a deal on a $3 billion plan to send one-time tax rebate checks of $260 to 2.5 million Minnesota residents. It creates a new tax credit that they hope will slash childhood poverty rates and exempt many seniors from taxes on their Social Security income. Local governments will see a boost in aid to keep property taxes down and help cover the public safety cost. Not everyone will see a tax cut under the bill, and some corporations and wealthier Minnesota residents will pay more. The deal presented late Wednesday night comes after months of negotiations among Democrats on how much to cut taxes and who should benefit the most. With a historic $17.5 billion budget at the proposal, the Republicans have been critical of the plan and also pushing for more of the surplus to be devoted to tax cuts. The final agreement on the one-time tax rebate is smaller than $1,000 for individuals and $2,000 for married couples. But under this finalized deal, Minnesota people who make up to $75,000 a year can get a one-time refundable tax credit, and people will get a lot of money and help from this department. Other credits that could result in lowering your tax burden or even a large refund include the Earned Income, the Tax Credit, and the Child Independent Care Credit. The latter was made refundable in 2021, meaning up to $8,000 could get reimbursed on expenses for daycare and such, which show up on tax refunds. However, households that welcome the new family member could also be eligible for $1,400 for the third economic stimulus check. We have a lot of good news about the fourth stimulus payment that I want you to know, so continue watching the video. President Biden is now meeting with Democrats and Republicans to finally reach an agreement on the next package. Americans are urging President Biden to sign a new executive order that would allocate billions of dollars towards a fourth round of payments. So, we have some good news. President Biden's administration is actually going to renew its push with lawmakers to secure crisis funding this week. That's according to a White House official that told CNN that following inaction from the Senate on a $10 billion funding package, it is likely a deal will be reached very soon. The White House official has said as Congress turns back to work, the Biden administration will be focused on working with lawmakers to secure funds to keep aid flowing and continue protecting the American people from the crisis. The Biden administration has been sounding the alarm for weeks that additional funding is needed to continue the federal crisis, even as it seeks return to normal. The Biden administration also requested $22.5 billion in supplemental crisis relief funding in a massive government funding package, but it was removed from the bill. It included funding for the crisis, testing, and treatments. Negotiators were able to reach an agreement on a scaled-back $10 billion package, but Congress left Washington earlier this month without passing a bipartisan bill amid a disagreement over some policies. The inaction before the break marked the second time a deal on a crisis relief package has been scuttled over in just over a month. In March, a $15.6 billion package has been negotiated on by the House of Representatives and Senate leaders, but it collapsed because people couldn't agree on how to pay for it. And one of the major promises made by President Biden's election campaign was landmarked decision to cancel student debt. Over a year into the presidency, and nothing has happened of that sort. It has been proven to be a major stumbling block for the Democrats as they approach the midterm elections in November. After canceling much of the crisis-era spending plans, voters who are not inspired to vote for the Democrats, and a large-scale defeat is extended.
Rural America, inner city America, suburban America, throughout every single school district in America. That's part of the whole legislation we passed in terms of infrastructure. It started now, it's going to create millions of jobs as well.